Whoa.
Awesome. Is anyone able to check if we're on?
Yeah, it says live.
Oh, we're live. Awesome. Okay, well then I'll just kickstart us, eh? So, malolele everyone, talofa lava, kia ora and warm Pacific greetings, kia ora. My name is Melissa Lama, and I guess we've got a really awesome panel here today who are going to join us in this all-important discussion around Pink Shirt Day. So as we know, tomorrow is Pink Shirt Day, which is a day in which we stand together to ensure our people and our communities can be themselves, free of pressure, discrimination, and bullying. So again, like I said, I'll start by introducing myself. Melissa Lama, mum of two, currently living in Dunedin, grew up in Christchurch, and a student as well as working, so full-time in public sector. So what I'll do is I'll just chuck it to our next panelist on my screen, and that will be you, Charles. Fred, you want to go?
Talofa everyone, my name's Charles. I'm a father of two beautiful daughters, and my partner's next to me on the panel, Julia. But a little bit about myself, I'm a counsellor. I work with troubled youth. Some of the youth that I work with have been through a lot and find it hard to speak up. So my job is to journey alongside them and just help them find their feet, help them find their voice, and really speak up about the traumas and the things that they've been through. I love what I do, and it's my passion. I found it, funnily enough, sitting in a room myself. So I'm glad that I can use what I have to help other people. That's me.
Cool, so we'll move down to Julia.
Cool, yeah, Talofa, thank you, Melissa. Thanks, babe. I'm really excited to be here. I am 27 years old. I just moved back to Aotearoa in February this year after working overseas in technology. I grew up in Auckland and in Christchurch. Auckland, I'm still getting used to again, but I miss Christchurch a lot. And I'm really excited to be here. I work in social impact when it comes to technology and increasing diversity in the industry, and trying to work and find ways to close the digital divide and achieve digital equity.
Thanks, Julia. Thank you. We'll move to Cam.
Awesome. Kia ora everyone. My name is Cam Young, and I'm a second year anatomy student here at the University of Otago, so all the way in not so sunny Dunedin. I was raised, however, in the sunny, beautiful Hawke's Bay, where I spent the first 18 years of my life. In 2017, I came out as gay, and being from a Pacific Christian family, obviously that's not very common. And so I guess it was with the clapback and the adversity that I faced coming out as gay, that really shaped my passion to help other Pacific youth, not only queer identifying, but in general, just the whole Pacific young community, in order to find their voice and find validation in their identities, no matter what that is. So yeah, I'm really excited to be part of this talanoa, and thank you so much for having me.
Cool, thanks guys. I guess one thing I want to mention is a massive shout out to CDANS, the Cook Islands Development Agency New Zealand, as well as PYLAT, Pacific Youth Leadership and Transformation Council, for I guess creating this space for us to be able to talanoa with you all. All I encourage to our audience that is watching, I'm sure there'll be a few people, I'm going to say that, please send us your thoughts, any questions that you might have via the Facebook Live, and we'll do our best to incorporate that into this discussion. So guys, I thought we'll just kick off. The whole idea is just to keep it as informal, as relaxed as possible, but also very informative. So our first question is, why do you care about this space, and why is it personal to you? So I'll just chuck that out on the floor. Why do you care about this space around Pink Shirt Day, and why is it special to you?
I'll start since I already, oh, sorry.
That's cool.
Since I already, basically said my spiel. So just to, I guess, also inform everyone, in case you didn't know, because when I was growing up, I had no idea what Pink Shirt Day was. So Pink Shirt Day started because in Canada, there was this homophobic bullying going on. And so as a response to that, they started wearing pink shirts in support of the homophobic bullying that was going on against it, sorry. And so it started with that, so just specifically homophobic bullying, which is why I have that connection to it. But it has blown up to be this global celebration of diversity and really advocating against bullying, against, I guess, being oppressive, being unkind to others. And so that is what Pink Shirt Day is all about, just a reminder that you are loved and that you should love.
Okay, I'll go. I think for me, one of the things that I have really learned along my journey is the fact that so often we don't know what other individuals are going through, and so often it's so much easier to judge than it is to learn about one another and to listen in with empathy and understanding and move forward with that open heart. And I think through my journey, I've experienced a lot of judgment, a lot of critiques around me as a human being, whether or not it's about my personality, whether or not it's about my cultural makeup, being in industries where the percentage of Māori or Pacific are less than 2%, you're often coming against constant battles to feel okay in your own skin and to want to celebrate yourself. And one of the things that I see, like just across Aotearoa overall, is obviously our tall poppy syndrome, but also the fact that within our culture, we tend to we weaponize things like humility, and we use that as a way to shut ourselves down in order to fit in. And although that's not necessarily what you might deem as like direct bullying, it is a form of bullying because you're trying to squish someone to fit into a predefined box versus allowing them to celebrate who they are and letting that flourish and come through. And whether or not, like whatever way that flourishment happens is on the individual, but culturally, we still let it be okay that, oh, if somebody's a bit different, I'm just going to throw out a couple of mean jokes and then they'll stop doing what they're doing. Or if I push them enough, eventually they're just going to shut themselves out. And like the world doesn't need any more of the same thing. Like the world does not need us playing small. It does not need us blocking our light, dimming our own lights. It doesn't need us holding ourselves back from our own greatness. And for me, that's kind of where I come at this from a bullying standpoint, is just all of those quick judgments, all of that mean humor, all of that lack of understanding and just seeing difference as beautiful leads to a lot of mental health issues. And I've experienced them myself. And I know that they're universal as well. And it's not specific to any one individual demographic. It's if you want to shut someone's light out, you're going to soon watch that person crumble on the inside. And I'm totally against that. And so that's also why this means a lot to me.
Cool. The reason why this is important to me because I myself have gone through some multiple forms of bullying. It may not be the physical bullying, because I'm a big Samoan Islander guy, that never really happened. But it was it was more people not understanding and looking at me a certain way. And I could definitely feel that. They didn't have to say anything for me to feel that, but it was just the way they looked at me. And I just felt, I guess, out of place at a lot of places that I was at, school, in my own family, in the work environment. So yeah, this is important to me because I know that a lot of people out there have gone through similar things but don't have the voice to say it and don't have the courage to come out. And I just want to applaud Cam for coming out and being true, owning his truth, because a lot of us are still struggling with that. So that's why pink t-shirt is this is important to me.
Shock, guys, coming on in the fields. Look, I completely agree. I think there's massive different forms of bullying, and often the default is it's like all physical. But everyone mentions the importance around words, family, you know, the old like, oh, like harden up attitude, like, you know, it's just a joke, and, you know, we sort of giggle away like we're actually hurt, but we just sort of giggle so we don't look like we're being too sensitive. You know, those are all forms of bullying that we tend to normalize, and sometimes we unconsciously normalize, but also we're aware and then we're not willing to do much about it. But for me, it'd probably be the most an important day, because I have two boys, ages 8 and 5, and they're very different. And so the older one, since the age of 5, has always been struggling with bullying at school. And so it's typically because he's, you know, Afgasi, his dad's Balangi Māori and I'm Tongan. And so he's quite big build, tall. So you know, all the kids or my family tend to think he's, you know, supposed to be a natural athlete, but he's not. You know, he doesn't like sport. He doesn't want to go and be a part of cross country. He'll do it every now and then, but it's not his first choice like most island kids. And so the expectation that he's going to be amazing at sport isn't there. And so kids tend to pick on him for his, I don't know, that he can't do what they expected him to do, you know, or a lot of parents say basketball, like, you're going to be really good. No doubt he's good, you know, and that when he isn't, all the kids are like, we thought you were good, you know. And so it's sort of turned into this big joke that he sort of struggles with at the age of 8. And so when I hear kids say openly in front of me, I'm like, oh, am I overreacting if I tell them off now? But, you know, it's like your own kid right in front of you. He's getting like, you know, teased because he doesn't enjoy something that apparently all brown boys are supposed to be good at doing. So I don't know, even in a young age, it's like that whole mentality that we've got to discuss or try and, you know, bring diversity to, I guess. But moving forward, another question that I picked up from what you talked about, Julia, is what can our Pasifika communities do better with addressing bullying? Like when it comes to bullying, what can we do better?
Yeah, I think there's something to unpack in terms of culturally our understanding of emotions and the ability to share emotions and share feelings. And I think we sort of alluded to it, this whole harden up mentality, this whole sort of like, it's not important, just sweep it under the rug. Like, I don't have time for this. This is like, I'm not equipped to handle what you're about to share with me, so therefore I'm just going to shut it off. And I'm not going to say I have a solution to this, but just in terms of trying to find a way to see vulnerability as strength and the act of speaking out as a way in which to draw closeness more so than it is to draw discomfort. But like that is like quite a large behavior change for us to get used to as like culturally. And I think opening up ways where we can encourage vulnerability, like whether or not it's in our friendship groups, whether or not it's in our family groups, whether or not it is in an act of sitting on this panel and actually putting yourself forward, whatever, like all of those small acts of vulnerability, like to quote Brené Brown, when one individual demonstrates vulnerability, it gives someone else the permission to do the same. Now, those are all like micro changes that lead up to overall over time, like a greater change that could occur. But celebrating vulnerability, celebrating the real and the raw, celebrating emotions and the fact that we all have them. We're not stone cold robots. We're driven by them. We're human beings, and just making them feel okay and making them become normalized. And it's really like normal to cry. It's normal to have a hard day. It's normal to feel down about yourself. It's normal to see a therapist. Like, you go to the gym for your body. What are you doing for your spirit, for your soul, for your mind? Like, it's that should be as normal as going to the gym or going for, I don't go to the gym anymore, I'll be honest, but like going for a walk. This one knows because he's like trying to drag me to the gym and I'm like, oh, let's sleep. But yeah, like I think some of those, again, I guess to summarize, it's making like normalizing discussing feelings and emotions, celebrating vulnerability, and then just small acts individually lead up to a greater change. So I think some of those, like just to try and stop rambling, those are kind of the three things that I think would be really beneficial for us collectively and individually.
Sweet, thank you. No, you're not rambling. It's all rich. It's good. It's good. Cam?
Wow, I just have no words. That was amazing, Julia. You perfectly, yep, job done. Can we go go home now? Go home, sleep. Wow, that was perfect. Honestly, I don't want to take away from the just the quality of that. So I guess from another perspective, and I'm sorry if you hear this helicopter outside, but from the perspective of someone who I guess is like, even saying now here on this panel, you know, who knows how many people will see this? Probably, you know, my 5 people from my family and my 5 friends. But even saying, you know, I'm gay, I'm queer Pacific, that is really scary all the time. And I think that people forget that that it still remains scary and that it's still not a normal thing. When I came out as gay, you know, that it was on my 17th birthday, the official thing, I made me a rainbow cake, cut into it, and I pulled it out, and I was like, I'm gay, huh? But like that was like a nice celebration, and I thought, wow, I feel so good. When I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm gonna be like happy. I'm gonna have no depression. I'm gonna be so like at one with myself and just completely happy, and I'm gonna know my purpose and my identity. And that did not happen. And so it was a really really big dip in my life because I had so much expectation towards coming out or towards accepting the full area, the full parts of my identity. And so when it didn't have that happy ending, I fell back into depression, and I was like, wow, like, you know, life didn't actually change. Maybe I said a few words, but that didn't really change anything about my situation. And so that was really hard on me. And I guess that that's something which people don't forget. They think that once you come out as gay and once you're like openly proud and wear your A katu on your head or wear your say every single day, that that you, I guess, have no feelings and that you don't get hurt anymore by little jibes, little comments. And yeah, so I think that that's one of the difficult things that I've found coming past and coming out of this. So I guess, sorry, that truly was rambling. Bringing it back to that idea of the advice I'd give to Pacific peoples and Pacific communities, I guess it's don't forget about the ones who are loud and proud and who are out there, because they need support. They need love as well. You don't need that anymore. We're still human beings. Doesn't matter if we have a big smile on our face. Sometimes having that smile on our face and being out there and being loud and proud is actually more difficult sometimes. But yeah, thanks. Charles?
Yeah, Julia kind of took all my ideas. That's why he wanted to ask me those questions yesterday. Yeah, he stole my ideas. But I guess pretty much what Julia was saying is normalizing emotions at home. Growing up as a Pacific Islander, that was never done. Like, because our parents came from the islands where they didn't really have that information. They never really had, you know, what's a therapist? They just think their version of a therapist is the priest. And then the priest is always coming from a religious, you know, view. So they never really focused on them as a person. So I guess normalizing what Julia was saying, normalizing emotions, normalizing crying, anger, like talking about it, making that a topic of discussion at home, like why were you angry? Breaking it down to like the simple things so that your parents or your children can understand like why you felt that way. Also, like what Julia was saying, because it was my idea, but like, you know, for example, like we go to the doctors when we feel sick. That's physical. But when it comes to mentally feeling sick, like who do we go to? That's why God gave therapists, you know, their power, because same way the doctor operates is the same way a therapist. They're able to break down things with you that are going on in your head, and you're able to, I guess, strategize a way around it. I think what I've learned is when you start to shed light on pain, trauma, you're able to look at it differently, look at it from a different perspective and be like, oh, that's what that is. And when it comes up in your life, you're able to, I guess, navigate differently so that it doesn't become a cycle, I guess. And yeah, I think I'm rambling too now. But yeah, normalizing emotions, and also seeing a therapist or seeing people that are there to help. Like, that's the advice, because for our parents, like, or my parent, like my mom, she's in the 50s, like they, I guess, information, like sharing with them about, like, depression, sharing about them, about mental illness, about, other things, because they never had that information when they were growing up. So for our Pacific people, I guess, just sharing info, making things normal, and going to see those people that have those special powers.
Sweet, that's really good, guys. I had a question come through Messenger in regards to a parent who said, what advice can we give to parents with children who experience bullying or are bullied? Yeah. So what's some advice? And I guess that leads into one of the other questions. I mean, that's here around what support we can give to people who have been bullied as well. So I know it's quite a loaded question, but if there's any type of advice, if you could think of when you're a kid and things happened and, you go to your parents and they say, oh, I'll just go see the teacher, but we know damn well that's not going to do much. What would you want to see differently? Yeah. So I'll chuck that one out to Cam if you want to start.
Sure. Advice to a parent. For me, I'm pretty against being too involved in the student's life, because I think it's so important for kids to grow on their own and to not be coddled and not have their hand held all throughout life, because they need to be independent. They need to grow a lot. And I was lucky that my mum definitely, she was too busy, trying to work and provide for us kids, because she was a solo mum and I'm the youngest of 6 kids. So that's a lot of stress to do. And so I was privileged in that sense that I had to grow up a lot and I had to be my own adult and be my own parent a lot. And so when bullying was happening at school, I had to find ways to deal with it myself. But I would always go to my mum, and this was before I came out as gay to her. So when I was a bit younger, and when I would talk to her about things that were happening at school, even that took a lot of courage for me to do, to admit that to my mum. And I think that she recognized that, and she instead of her being like, oh, I'll march up to the principal's office and I'll tell those kids, she would always, I guess, provide space, provide that VAR for me to just be upset and be vulnerable and just cry a little bit or cry a lot. And then she would say, well, that is okay. It's okay to go through that. What are you going to do now? What's the next step? It's always looking forward to the future. And she empowered me to take matters into my own hands and think, what am I going to do now? Am I going to, hit them back? No, violence is not the answer. So I'll be like, oh, I won't do that, mum. Okay, what else am I going to do? Am I going to go see a teacher? Am I going to go maybe confront them, after school and talk it through with them? And so I think, yeah, I was blessed that I was able to find the independence and find the empowerment from my mum.
Yeah, that's super beautiful. I think my mum was the opposite, perhaps, to yours. The first thing I'll say, it always depends if we go on the scale of bullying, depending on the severity will obviously depend on how you approach. So that's the first thing I'll say, is that what we're suggesting is just sort of general options, not if it's something really, really serious. I don't think any of us think we're equipped to kind of give you answers on that end of the spectrum. But just generally speaking, I think from being on the back end of experiences with my mum, who would honestly be out the gate ringing every single parent if there was involved, getting on the principal, turning up to the school. I'm trying to stop her with 2 hands, and she's like, you will not do this, full blown. That's probably one of the worst things that I could suggest. just from like the hardcore embarrassment level, and then also from the levels of stress that it puts that child under as well, and then what that conditions the child to understand to do in a scenario like this. So probably one of the things is trying to limit projections that you may, like when your child is going through something and it may bring up something that has happened to you in the past and may indicate for you to react in a certain way that is actually more your stuff than it is your child's stuff. So what can you do to ensure that if you are feeling triggered, that you're looking after that space and actually leaning into understanding what are their needs, not necessarily what are your needs. So trying to separate that difference, which I'm not super equipped to say because I don't know what it feels like when it is your child and what that draw in may be to just react. But I think what Cam mentioned about developing that space and giving them the time and your patience to let them kind of move through their emotions without there needing to be a reaction immediately, and building up that space for them to feel confident each time to come to you that something bad has happened without in fear of your reaction. Because that's the other thing, like I would start to shut down and not tell my mum stuff because I'm too scared of what she might do, not even like, which ends up breaking a lot of relationships down. So I think that's something that I would potentially suggest, like just from what not to do.
I agree with what Julia's saying is I guess creating that space that your child can come to you, that's important because if you do project, like if you do get triggered, then yeah, like you'll end up pushing them away. Growing up, we found it hard to really connect with our parents, or I did connect with my old lady because, you know, being brought up in a strict home, religious, you know, you weren't allowed, you'd get a smack on the hand if you did something wrong. And ultimately that kind of, even though she meant well, it kind of made it hard for me to really share because I was afraid of how it would hurt her or how she would be disappointed in what I've done. So advice I would give would be to create that safe space. Just hold space for them when they do go through some forms of bullying, and just allow them to unpack it in their own time. Like give them space and time, and just make them feel heard. Because a lot of the times when young people don't feel heard, that's when they start to act up and they start to close up even more. They don't want to share anymore because they're not feeling heard. And if they're not feeling heard at home, then it's going to be hard for them to build other relationships outside of home, because home is where it should start. Yeah.
Sweet. Very, very good perspectives, and quite different too. And like Julia said, it's really important to know that we're just, you know, ordinary community members who are just sharing our lived experiences and also the things that we've learned along this journey. But I'm definitely similar to your mum, Julia. And I think part of the reason I'm like that is because when I grew up, I didn't really have, I guess you grow up and you become more confident in your voice. And so I wouldn't say things when I'd get picked on, but then I was like, my kid's not going to be like that. Like my kid's going to speak up and, you know, like my kids. And so sometimes when my older son comes home, and I've noticed because I get triggered so easy with that, he's not as open now. We're sort of finding other pathways for him to come talk to me about it. But I would react like that. I'd be like, so what did you do? Like that, you know, and he's like, so when he said this and they laughed at you, what did you do? Like, I mean, obviously I don't want him to hit them, but because I was just so fixated on his response, he'd be like, I just walked off and cried. And then I would get even more infuriated that he cried, you know? And so I was like, oh my gosh, like, why am I reacting like this? And because I always told myself that my kids were not going to be like me and just silent and like cry in the corner, when in fact it is like that right now. And I think that's my projection of like how I'm feeling that I put on him. And so he starts telling me like, oh, I don't want to tell you because, you know, you might, then I know exactly what he means. So I am trying to work on it, like calm down in terms of my responses, because it does become the barrier to a safe conversation and space for him. It's not about me, Melissa. It's not always about me. But yeah, great advice, guys, and good question as well. I think the next one is, what support can we give to a bully? Something that I've heard today at work was someone said, I was bullied so much that I had to become the bully in order to not be bullied. So I was kind of like, oh, I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit like, what the heck? And then I realized like, oh, you know, that actually makes sense, you know, like I could see why this person said that. But so what support can we give to a bully? I'll chuck this one to you to start first, Charles, if you're keen.
I'll see this. Funnily enough, I had a experience with this just the other week, where one of our boys, that's a part of our program, he tends to bully a lot of other people in the group. And there's a saying, hurt people hurt people. And, you know, like what Julia was saying before, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors with everyone else, what everyone else is going through. And what I was able to do is just give him that space and like just ask him, like, you know, what's actually going on. And like they just want to feel heard as well. Sometimes it's learned behavior. Like at home, they might have been bullied from their old man or their uncles or anything, or like their aunties, and it's just learned behavior. They're just repeating patterns that they see at home. And until someone can really hold space and like really help them unpack the hurt that they're going through, then I guess that's the way to get through to a bully, is really just holding space and allowing them to work on their hurt as well, so they don't hurt other people. I don't know if that made sense, but yeah, that's what I've experienced with this guy at work. Cause he was acting up, but I was able to just like take him for a drive and just let him chat. Like, you know, what's really going on? Like, you tend to be taking it out on other people. And he just said that like his home, what was happening at home, like that's where he learned it from. So kind of making him like aware of his behavior, and then also unpacking with him, like, or with them, their behavior.
I totally, I mean, he stole that one from me this time, hurt people hurt people. But I think on a different level, like that's something that if you're being bullied, or if you're in your peer group and you notice bullying, I think one of the first things that has to change is being casual about it. So whether or not we're looking at like mean jokes, mean humor, to straight out, flat out, like quite nasty behavior, I think one of the things that we collectively have to and individually have to do in order for it to be collective is like just call it out. Like casual racism doesn't fly, casual teasing doesn't fly. Like that's the start, and you never know how far that person is to like jumping over that ledge if you just keep letting those little comments fly, because all of those little microaggressions build up. Like if somebody's been teased for the longest time about one thing and they hear it one more time, that could be the tipping point between them being alive or them not being alive the next day. And I think that's when we need to take some of that. Like, I know mean humor is a big part of culture, like just like humor overall, but just always taking the piss out of each other and just giving each other shit is like kind of like social norms. But I think we have to get a little bit wiser about that, or check in with each other afterwards and actually just be like, how are you feeling? Because the more we let all of those like casual things happen is when it starts to build up and become more of a problem. So I think just individually, like recognizing that teasing isn't that cool anymore, like that's way out of date. And it should have been out of date a long time ago. Like we're in 2020 now. We don't need to keep being like just mean for the sake of being cool. Like that's not cool. We know that's not cool. So trying to shut that out, I think, is something just from what you notice around you is really a way forward.
Yeah, I love that. And again, just reaffirming that quote, hurt people. Like I definitely vibe with that, because you know, I may be all smiles, I may be all happy and stuff, but I was that person who was bullied and then became the bully. And that is one of the biggest regrets that I have, because I I just turned my anger on everyone else. And I guess to explain that, it's I think the gay community, the LGBTQ plus community, because we're more than just gay. What we'd like to do, especially the Pacific queer people, we love to get real sassy and to be straight up savage sometimes. We like to work our tongue, have a quick mind, be quick-witted, especially when we are being bullied verbally. And so that's something that I definitely developed growing up, is if someone was to tease me verbally at school, I just quick fire, roast them right where they stand. And that was something that became funny. And then since it became funny, I did it more and I did it more, and then I overstepped boundaries, because for me it was okay because I was upset, and so I had to make them feel the same way that I felt. And really, like, to be straight up, that left me with no friends. And it's when I hit rock bottom, no friends, I became severely depressed and I became suicidal, that I really realized after hitting rock bottom that I needed to make a change. And I wish I'd had someone to hold my hand as I got back up. But I didn't actually have that person in my life. And so a lot of it was building on myself and having to self-reflect and be like, oh, like, that comment was a little too shady. Let's not say that next time. Let's react with kindness, and let's react with love, rather than a shady little comment or roasting them, what they're wearing, or things like that. And so that's something I'm definitely working on. Coming to university, I guess, being in high school, by the end of high school, by year 13, everyone knew me, I knew everyone. And so they knew either not to mess with me, or they knew that what they were doing was bad, or that my older brothers would, give them a hiding or something. But coming to university, this is a whole new kettle of fish, And so I think at the start of last year, my first year, I did start to do that a little bit. And so, growth is a process, and I think it's okay to make mistakes, just as long as you learn from them and you grow from them.
Nice. Thanks again, guys. We've actually had another question come through. And the next question is, who is an upstander that inspires you? So who's somebody in your life, or somebody that inspires you, which is nice. Nice question amongst all this loaded conversation. So if anyone wants to jump in there, who is an upstander that inspires you?
I'll go because it came to mind straight away. My only role model in my life is my mum. She is my constant, my rock, my everything. And it's all because of the reasons my mum's like there for me. My mum loves me, all that stuff. My mum's done everything for me, which is so true for me, absolutely. But it's because of my mum's faults that I admire her even more. My mum was raised in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. That's how she raised us 6 kids. And when I came out as gay in 2017, I came out to my friends separately from my mum. My mum was the last person I came out to, because I knew exactly how she'd react. And we're in an argument, and then she was like, tell me what's going on. Like, what is wrong with you? Why are you so depressed and blah, blah, blah. And then just right back at her, I said, you want to know? I'm gay. And then there was a silence, and then she said, well, you know how I feel about that. You're going to hell. And I was just, whew, that just blew me away, because that was just her automatic reaction, what she'd been conditioned with, right? Because in the church, that's how she was taught. That's how she was taught to react to homosexuals, to homosexual behavior. And so that was just an immediate reaction to what I just said. But that was 3 years ago now, just over 3 years ago. She has grown so much, and she's over 50 years old, but she has changed her mind. She has overcome those perceptions about the homosexual community, because her love for me was so strong. And it's because of that initial I guess it is hate towards the community that she doesn't understand, and her willingness to change and to try continue to love me and continue to support me no matter how I identify. I think that's why I admire her the most, and why She will always be my number one.
Okay, I'll jump in because I just thought of mine. I'm the same as you, Cam. My mum is the my most harshest critic, most honest critic, but also my most like loving, like side chick I could ever have. Like she's always willing to call me up on my crap and just be so dead honest, but at the same time have so much love and compassion. And she has always been very strong around my role as the only girl in the family. You know, not being too loud, and growing up, she'd always tell me, you know, you shouldn't be saying things like that. And over time, she started to realize that actually by just being there is my like to catch me when I do learn the hard way about some of the things I say or some of the things I do was better for our relationship. So yeah, definitely my mum. I mean, she's probably made me cry the most, but also made me laugh the hardest as well. So that's me. I just love the like we get it, you two are together. I absolutely love it. I'm like, this is cute.
What are you doing? Jeez. Sitting there looking like jokes. Like a snack, right? Not bullying today. We're not bullying. Not a fool, a snack. There we go. So I think, oh gosh, it was interesting. I was thinking about this quite a lot as you guys said your moms, and I was like, man, I'm going to seem like the worst child if I don't say my mom. But there's a few people that I suppose have really inspired me. My mom is absolutely one of them. And she, for many reasons, one is just her level of grit and determination in the face of adversity. So being, I'm both Samoan and British and Chinese, and her own family disowned us to a certain extent or rejected us to a certain extent because I was brown and she's British. So the first round of rejection she got was from her own family when it came to being pregnant with me. And she has battled with mental health her entire life. Whilst she was actually pregnant with me, she did try and drown herself because her life was that hard. She also, I've seen her try and I guess you could say, it had attempts to commit suicide since I was 7 years old onwards, at least once a year. She is an individual who I still really hope finds a place of healing within herself. I think she's got quite a long journey for that to happen. But the fact that she is still standing in the face of the adversity that she has endured and sometimes created for herself, I will also add that. I think she's an incredible human being. To a certain extent, I think I'm actually quite proud of myself to sort of just go really counterculture. And the reason why I say that is because I know I have every reason under the books to have not turned out the way I have. And what I mean by that is, in coming from a family which had a lot of intergenerational trauma, a father that left when I was 3 weeks old, a father that also had a huge problem with alcohol and gambling, threatened to kill me, a mother that also had many suicide attempts in my whole life, even asked my permission to kill herself at one given point. There are many times where I could have chosen to not be who I am, which is somebody who leans into vulnerability, who leans into healing, who talks about the wounded child, who talks about childhood trauma, inner work. And it's really hard to be this way in this world because the world can't handle feelings and doesn't think that feelings exist and emotions exist. And I think I suppose, just to be hardcore Snoop Dogg, I think it was Snoop Dogg who said, like, I congratulate myself when he, like, I can't remember, but I am quite proud of myself to be able to have walked this different road, because I used to be quite a tough human being. I used to be really hard. I used to put up walls and not let anyone anywhere near me because I thought that was the only way to survive. And when I realized that vulnerability is strength, when I realized that the greatest warriors wear their scars on their sleeves and show their strength, that was the road I was going to choose, everything changed. And life became a lot more authentic. There was a lot more fulfillment. It didn't necessarily get easier, but there was a lot less hiding and a lot less faking it. And my relationships had more depth to them, had more meaning to them. I myself was able to learn all new insights that just made understanding yourself and living in your own skin a lot easier. So I would applaud my mum, but through that and through my father, I guess, and just choosing the path of healing, I'd also, I guess, applaud myself.
Someone that I really look up to would be my mum as well. Yeah, she's obviously been there from day one. But yeah, she's been my rock as well. So when I was born with a condition called club feet, which is where okay, it's hard to explain, but it's where my feet were like this, and then I had to be in casts from the years up until I was 3. So that was really hard growing up, and having my mom be that rock, who just was always right beside me, like through hospitals and everything, all of that stuff. Even up till now, like our relationship after me having kids, my appreciation for her changed, and like I really saw what it was like to struggle as a parent, and the love for that you have for your kids. So my appreciation for my mom changed after I had my daughters, and yeah, she's just been a constant, and it's not easy being a parent, and to have her lead by example has been really awesome. I'm grateful to have her, and she's taught me a lot in how to parent, because I lost my dad early. So my mom kind of had to be mom and dad, and she did a great job with me and my sisters, because yeah, it was a hard life, but I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful for her, for the values that she's instilled in me, the way that I was raised. I can pass those values down onto my kids and other people that I meet as well. And like the works that she does, like sometimes the blessings don't come to her, sometimes they come to us, like, or if not me, my kids. And like if you want to, everyone in Christchurch probably knows my mom, that like, she's got a big heart, and hopefully I'll be remembered the same, like for the same things.
Okay, I'm gonna be this person, and I'm just gonna because he's totally undermining his stuff, and it's frustrating the life. I'm not a micromanager at all. But can I just to explain, Freddie's feet, being born with clubfoot, is being born with a disability, and it's being born and if visually your feet are normally flat, his feet weren't flat. Were they inverse, or were they on? So his feet were born inverse. So if you can imagine, your feet are now in front, like your feet normally sit in front of you, they were born this way. Now that leads to it being like a visually, you can see his disability, or you can see the deformity in his, and what would normally be how your ankles would be shaped are very different to others, and how his feet are shaped, and his gait and how he walks and runs. Now, if you know Pacific culture, how much he received bullying throughout his entire life, just because obviously it's a disability, and we think that those are funny things to talk about, and we think that by teasing somebody it makes us look cool. Now for Freddie sorry, I'm not calling Freddie, but for him to be moving through that and unpacking that, and actually almost sharing that to his family members and saying, that really hurt, like I've gone through depression because of that, and that led me to understand myself in a certain way. And he's like 6'4", super tall dude, talking about his feelings, sharing to his family, the way you treated me growing up was actually like a lot more negative than probably what you even understood. is a huge journey to be embarking on, and then to be leaning into that vulnerability and sharing how being born with a disability leads you to understand yourself, and actually still being giving to others at the same time, like giving and healing other people whilst you're looking at yourself and, like, you know, trying to fill up your own cup at the same time, I think is something, again, to be applauded, but I'm just obviously biased. So yeah.
No, I'm glad you brought it. It's so important, and there's a massive, I guess, group in society who will be able to relate to this, you know.
Like, oh, sorry, I'll just bring it back to what you said before, Melissa, about your boys being, like, you know, certain, like, looking a certain way, therefore people thinking, like, having these perceptions of them. I grew up with that, like, honestly, like, sorry, my kid's in the background. I grew up with that, like, people seeing me and like, oh, this guy's 6'5", like he's gonna be like sports star, and like people didn't know that, like, behind closed doors I couldn't walk sometimes. And like, so like that was hard for me, because like I knew people were like, oh, why does this guy walk differently? Why does this guy, like, why doesn't he play like all the other islanders that are his size? But they didn't know, like, that's what I meant before about people looking at you a certain way. They don't have to say it for you to feel it. Like, and that's what I grew up with, like people staring at me for ages and be like, that doesn't make sense. Or like, why does he look like that? Like, why doesn't he play like New Zealand, or why doesn't he play rep footy? Like, because he's got the build. But people don't know that, man, it was hard for me to even walk to this field. Like, I'll still get on the field and I'll still play. Like, I'm not bad, but I'm not going to be that person that you think I am, because you don't know what I've been through. Like, and there's also, like, with what Julia was saying, like, even my family, like, because they were my family, they thought that it was okay to joke about it. Like, oh, like, hey, there's a word called club in someone, and they would say that, like, thinking that I was okay because they were close to me, but when really that hurt more because they were close to me, and they didn't try and understand, like, me. They just more or less projected their humor or what they thought was funny onto me, and that was hard. That was really hard.
No, thank you so
Sorry
much.
to ramble.
It's good. I really thank you for being willing to share that, and it's very useful for me. So thanks. I really appreciate that. So guys, we have been talking for a bit, and so we are going to go around and wrap up, and just, if there's any last words you want to say to those watching, or to anybody who might be experiencing bullying right now, you know, what advice would you give them to safely, especially to safely raise what they're experiencing, or whatever your last words would like to be. So yeah, I'll let anybody jump into that.
I'll start us off. I've got two little things I wanted to end with. The first one is that, oh, and I just lost my thought. Oh, I'm gonna go with that one. One is that life comes in seasons, right? Life comes in seasons of giving and seasons of receiving. So up until the age of probably 18, to be honest, before I even came to high school, to university, that was a season of me receiving, right? It was me hibernating in myself, trying to figure out what I liked, what I didn't like, who I was, and how I wanted to be in the world. And now I have my season of giving. I'm able to give to my mentees, to give to the students I care for and I love and I look after here. And so for me, that's really important. And I needed that time, right? I needed that time to hibernate and to take care of myself and pull resources and pull things from other people. And so that is important. It's important to be okay with that and to not always be, you know, up the front giving all the time, 24/7. And the second thing is specifically for queer Pacific people. I think it's being kind to yourself. Absolutely, we all get messages of self-love, and absolutely love yourself before you try and love other people. But in saying that as well, be kind to others. Be kind to your mum, who doesn't quite understand you just yet. I mean, I took 17 years before I could accept myself. Why do I expect my mum to love me straight away? You know, to change her mind overnight, at least 17 years. And then I'll start getting, like, okay, okay, Marjorie, let's start changing your mind about this. But, kind to others and realize that your journey is not together as a community, as a family, as a people. So, all those challenges that you face, I know that other people in your family, in your space, also face them as well. Awesome. That's from me. Thank you again for
Okay, I won't keep people waiting. I think one of the first things I would say that I found quite liberating is that everyone is broken. Like literally everyone has their stuff. Like everyone is flawed, everyone's gone through something, no one is perfect. And anyone that's trying to pretend they're perfect is the least perfect person. Because that means that person is like out the gates lost in terms of self-awareness, like seriously. And everybody therefore should, and I would use the word should, or I would highly encourage them to do their inner work, to go deep on themselves, to go inward, to ask themselves why do I react in a certain way? How did the way in which my parents talked to me or the way in which my parents were impact how I see the world? Like, and recognize that like a lot of our stuff comes back to like childhood trauma. Like a lot of it comes back and it surfaces itself up in a multitude of different ways. But like no one has their shit together. And it is a journey of healing. It is a journey of getting to a stage where you really have that deep understanding of self and you've worked on yourself. But everyone has a responsibility to do that. Like you aren't responsible what's happened to you, but you are responsible for how you heal from that. So that's like one big thing that I dropped down. Another thing is like just reflecting back onto my individual journeys when I've been in really, really dark places and definitely have been suicidal myself and had suicidal thoughts. And I think one of those, like looking back on those times where you honestly believe there's no way through, like you're really convinced there's no way through and it won't get easier. And those dark clouds, which are like making everything so short-sighted and you can only think about what's happening to you right now. And I know it's going to be really cliche, but there is a side on the other side of that. Like there is something there and it is only through like, and it is not necessarily, I think pushing through is a little bit negative, but it is somewhat of just having hope, holding on to yourself, giving yourself that chance. There are days on the other side of those dark days. So I think those are the two things that I'd really put forward.
I took my ideas again. Similar to what Julia was saying, just around the real healing happens when you are able to go inwards. I really just explore pain, explore trauma, and just make that conversation like normal, like at home with your friends, like challenge your friends to just be like to talk about it normally, because then once you start to share your story, other people feel comfortable enough to share theirs, and just owning your story and being proud of like where you are. Like it might not be where you want to be, but recognizing where you are, you can look up and see where you need to go. For parents out there, I definitely encourage you to normalize emotions at home, like, and not just snap at the kids when you're when you're feeling and not projecting what you're feeling at the time, because they pick up on that. They're real smart, and then they start to build up walls and keep you away. So normalizing emotions at home, talking about like when they're crying, like why are you crying, breaking it down to the simple things. And then also just I lost my train of thought now. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. With parents, just try and make it normal to talk about feelings at home. and making your kids feel comfortable to come to you when they have something on their mind or something that they want to share. Sweet.
Thanks, guys. I guess from today, one thing that we've definitely been able to hear from all our discussion is about the importance of creating a community where all people feel safe, valued, and respected, regardless of age, sex, gender, identity, sexual orientation, ability, or cultural background, and ability as well. So thank you so much for your time to our panel. Thank you to the people who chimed in to our discussion. A huge thank you to the Cook Islands Development Agency New Zealand, CDANS, as well as PYLAT for creating this platform for us today. If there's anything I'm going to leave with you around Pink Shirt Day, Pasifika is about standing up, speaking out against bullying, not just by young people, but for all our Pasifika people. So, maloa pito and ofalahi atu. Thanks, guys.